Network.
Welcome back here to X's and Bros, Michigan Sports Network. Great to have you ride along with us no matter who you are, where you are, how you may be listening all across the great state of Michigan and in Northwest Ohio and worldwide on the iHeartRadio app. We say good morning to you. We welcome you. We thank you. We appreciate you. And, of course, we encourage you to join the program at any time. You can text the keyword Sports Radio and send that to 21,000. Sports Radio to 21000. Our Meyer Supercenter guest line, 866-838-4843. That's 866-838-4843. And we have to go into like the somber news portion of the program today because I think it's important to keep everyone up to date with the happenings of what is taking place now in Kansas City. Take a listen.
Defendant Mays was in a verbal argument with another individual. And the evidence does not reflect in these early moments that there was any prior history between these individuals. That argument very quickly escalated to Mays drawing his firearm, a handgun, almost immediately. Others pulled their firearms. Defendant Miller was one of those individuals. While both adults are charged with murder, the evidence tells us that it was Mr. Miller's firearm. Mr. Miller's firearm struck Lisa Lopez Galvin.
Peters Baker.
So that's where we're at right now. And in case you're wondering, well, what do you mean? Yesterday, Missouri prosecutors said that 2 adults have been charged with the murder in last week's mass shooting that killed 1 person and injured 22 others near the end of the Chiefs Super Bowl parade. Lindell Mays of Raytown, Missouri, and Dominic Miller of Kansas City, of Missouri that is, are both charged with second-degree murder, 2 counts of armed criminal action, and unlawful use of a weapon. Now, according to court documents, the 2 men were strangers. They pulled guns on each other and began the OK Corral after an argument. Both men were shot. They have both been hospitalized since the shooting. And Jean Peters Baker said during this news conference, she's the Jackson County prosecutors, they're each being held on $1 million bond. The argument began when 2 groups of people were agitated over the belief that people in the other group were staring at them. In the video, it shows that Mays was the first to begin shooting despite being surrounded by crowds of people. Mays told detectives, quote, he hesitated shooting because he knew there were kids there. But he began firing after someone in the other group said, I'm going to get you, which he took to mean that they were going to try to kill him. Miller initially told investigators that he and his friends began running after hearing the gunfire, and that he was shot in the back, one of the affidavits says. Now, investigators told Miller they had video of him chasing someone in Mays' group and shooting. Miller admitted to firing 4 to 5 shots. A bullet from Miller's gun is the one that killed Lisa Lopez Galvin. And there is also, in the initial reports, there are also 2 juveniles in this case involved as well. 22 people that were shot range in the age of 8 to 47. Now, we did have a shooting that wounded several people last year in Denver after the Nuggets NBA championship parade. And the minors issue is pretty interesting because they are being described. Authorities didn't release the age of either men. Mays is in his early 20s. Miller is either 18 or 19. And these new charges come after 2 juveniles were detained last week on gun-related and resisting arrest charges. Now, I'm a little shocked that we haven't seen, and I had this debate with somebody last night where they said, the shooters don't need any more news coverage. I go exactly the opposite way. I don't think that this should be swept under the rug and acted like nothing happened. I don't think that this should be kept quiet. I think this should be a very public case. And I think that the juveniles that are involved, their parents should be charged just like what we saw here in Oxford. How do you have access to a firearm? How do you not know where your children are at? How do you not? I mean, you are responsible for them. They are not adults yet. So in that regard, I would go after the parents as well. I would make a national spectacle of this. I would have this on the news every day of the week until people learn to figure it out that, hey, if my kids are out there and they get involved in a shooting or a gun crime, I'm going to be held responsible as an adult, as a parent. Because the kids have already ruined their lives. And I'm sure this isn't, they didn't just walk out there and just like, oh, today I'm going to carry a handgun. Like this is a pattern of behavior here. I'm sure if we do some research here, I'm sure whether we could find it in school records, behavioral patterns, I'm sure we could find it probably just in regular, documentation from the police department. And I honestly think that this is like your behavior and conduct in school should be part of a record that the government keeps and will actually have some weight as to whether or not you are legally allowed to purchase a firearm. Period. Because that's what it comes down to. I'm not opposed at all to having any sort of tougher laws on firearms, because the people like me, the law-abiding citizen, it doesn't affect us. For anybody who's listening to this right now that has purchased a firearm, whether you went to, like a range and bought one there, whether you went to a sporting goods store and bought one there, if you want to, people see that the AR, the assault rifle, and they want to ban on assault rifles, but they will look at an AR and look at an M14, not know the difference. One is, carbon and plastic. The other one has a wood frame, and they don't see the wood frame, rifle as a threat. Even though that M14 and the Mini 14, they can have the quote-unquote banana clip in it. You can absolutely do that. You can do drum magazines. You can absolutely do that. I mean, M14, that's what they carried in Vietnam. Does a civilian need to have that? If you want to, you're allowed to have it. But I would make the process a whole hell of a lot harder, to be honest with you. Because think about it like this. From a law-abiding citizen standpoint, I'd rather have less idiots with guns and more people like me. That's the way I look at it. So the less idiots with guns, the less we have to worry. And I just, what I want to make sure happens is that when something like this happens, we get the full details. Because there's something very interesting. You go back to that the Catholic school shooting in Tennessee, right? And the shooter had a manifesto, but we never really got to see that. Why is that? Why is that? That's a question I'd like to know. I wish somebody would come forth with an answer. The minors in this case, their identities are not being released, but we have seen minors in other gun-related crimes see their names and photographs be released. It's interesting. Why is that? It's Missouri law? Okay. I can get down with that. That's fair. That's fair. Was it a law in another state where we saw underage kids carrying firearms? So you absolutely charge the parents. And you go after them with all you can. And I think that is the way that you develop some sort of responsibility here. Because that's what we're lacking. We are lacking a responsible society in which, people are having kids, and that's fine. But you're having kids, you're not taking care of them. And that's not okay. So either you're going to raise your kids or our penitentiary system is going to. You choose. And either you're going to raise the kid or you are going to the penitentiary. Track people down. Mom and dad, hold them accountable. Took two to tango. You're both accountable. Where are you at? Where you been? Why aren't you here every day? So that's the way that I would approach it. I think that's common sense. And every time I come up with a gun law, it is in favor of people like me who own firearms legally. Without any problem. They've never gone off without me pulling the trigger. They've never got up and ran out of my house. They're responsible. And we're going to teach responsibility. And this is part of it. Like, you got to be tough on crime, though. You have to be. There can be no leeway. Like, you have to be hard to the point where it's like, you know what? I don't even want to carry one of those because I don't want to get caught. That will start to shift some things. Parents will tend to know, like, I don't know if little Billy should know where this is at. We'll step aside. Back with more X's and